Global Transformation Astrology, GTA, with William Stickevers.
George is saying, great presentation. Can you discuss how the LB in our charts are controlled by the individual or beyond our plan or control? So, okay, that's a very philosophical question. I'll answer it as quickly as I can. So, the Life Between Life, if you study Michael Newton, I would suggest everyone read Life Between Life, the book by Michael Newton. So basically, your personality, soul personality, has to find a match with the personality structure that one inherits and is shaped by one's environment. So someone was like very shy when they were younger, and then later on they become, a Broadway star, and they're out there and they know how to handle the paparazzi like the back of their hand. But they grew up a certain way, and you would never think they would end up being that person that they ended up becoming. That's an example of the self or the soul, who you ultimately become in the end, in terms of your personality that truly develops over time. It's actually the development of the personality. This is what Jung discovered, right? We get intimations of it, but what you ultimately become and who you become has more to do with the soul's code and calling and what your true personality is, that goes from life to all these different lifetimes, throughout all these different lifetimes. And that is symbolically represented in the horoscope. So here's an example. I don't like doing these readings anymore, but when I used to have friends, they had kids. The kid's like 4 years old. Oh, can you look at my kid's chart? And they would say, you know what? I can see some of what you're saying, but a lot of the other stuff, I don't see that in them at all. And I tell them, no, that's who they're going to become. That's not who they are now. That's who they are going to become. Their personality is going to shift and evolve and change because that's who they really are. So, if I said, oh, they got tremendous artistic ability, and goes, oh, he's not even interested in art. He doesn't like his art class, or she doesn't like music or whatever. Don't worry about that. They will. I mean, if you would have said to Aunt Mimi, who raised John Lennon, your son has tremendous musical potential. Well, John Lennon didn't show any interest in music, zero, until he was 16 years of age. And then he asked for a guitar. Didn't even know how to play it, right? So, if you would said, you would go, oh, his prolific ability to write and to make music, and he's going to have an interest in philosophy, and he's going to be the leader of this counterculture revolution. See what I'm saying? So that's part of what the chart is. And then the LB, the loosening of the bond, is the moment where you have those breakthroughs where who you truly are begins to show itself, even if it disrupts or you create the disruption. The LB will create the disruption to ensure that you become who you need to become. All right. Hopefully that answered it. And then Leanne is saying, what are the chances that AI will make knowledge workers obsolete? It already has begun. That's why the layoffs keep intensifying. They just had new layoff numbers. So if you're a senior level doctor, senior level AI engineer, senior level whatever, you're not going to get laid off. But they just don't need as many of you. And look, you've worked in companies. How many people really work? 20% of the people do 80% of the output of the company. 80% of the goods and services and profits generated is by 20% of the people. Everyone knows that's the 80-20 principle. So you just say, well, look, we'll just get rid of 80% of the workforce. Oh, we can't do that. That'll be too disruptive to our culture. Okay, let's get rid of 40%. So you're going to see a 40%, and then you'll see another 40%, right? Because we know 20% of what you do gets you 80% of the result. Like 20% of my techniques, I know all these techniques, but it's really 20% that get me the result that I'm looking for. But I need to know the other 80% to understand to do the 20%, right? I got to go all the schooling to finally figure out what I really need to learn. That's what life's about. I have to go through all this life to really figure out what I needed to learn. So I would say it's going to be about 80%, to be honest. So the higher your IQ, and the more, if you're like a PhD with 140 IQ, you're getting laid off faster than a 100 IQ blue collar worker who is a certified tradesman, someone who's a master plumber, master electrician with 100 and 110 IQ, right? Average plumber and electricians are between about 110 IQ. Corporate lawyers, 112 IQ, right? Like the higher IQ, like the lawyers are effed. I'm telling you right now, lawyers. Oh, no. Well, if you run your own law firm, you're not going to, right? You're just going to use AI. But I'm saying right now, a lot of legal stuff. So more white collar stuff's going to get hit hard very fast. Junior level programs, junior level doctors, junior level gone. Well, they'll need some, but not as many. So that's what's going to happen. It won't be 90% unemployment. We're looking at a 40% culling. You can get rid of 40% of teachers right now, train the other 40% with AI and say, listen, you're here, you're going to learn AI, or you're going to leave. Okay, no problem. I'll stay. I'll learn the AI. All right, great. Now you can teach better, faster, more customized, and you don't need the other 40%. You'll realize, oh, they were holding us back. They were the lazy ones. They were the ones that lost interest in the job. They were the ones not really even qualified to be a teacher, but they somehow got the degree and, got tenured, right? So you're going to see that happen. That is going to happen. 100% going to happen. Nothing stops the AI train. You must stop resisting it. You have to say, okay, that's the reality. What can I do about that? My boomer friends don't seem to get it. I hope they wake up soon. I don't think they're going to get it. I think there's a certain percentage that get it. There's a certain percentage of boomer astrologers that get it, but they're about, in my informed opinion, I would say about 15%. 15% really get it. And like, how many boomers own Bitcoin? 15%. It was 13% 2 years ago. It's 15%. How could that be, William? Bitcoin went from 60,000 this time last year to 120. I think it's 120 today. So it doubled this time last year. How can only 15%? It's not intelligence. It's psychology. So I do not think the remaining boomers in power are going to be the part of this shift. They're still holding on to the old world. Most of them, not all of them. They don't get it. They're not going to get it. They don't believe. Look, I just had arguments with some of the boomers on AI, right? They still don't get it. They said, oh, the AI, the examples were so, in fact, I proved each one of them false. And they made quotes from other papers they read, like the New York Post, on how AI just hallucinates all the time and has no real functional value, right? You have to understand, we had electricity in 1880, and it took 46 years because half of households in America, I know in Europe it took a little longer, but half of households refused to have electricity. We could have had electricity for 90% of the country by 1900. All right, a few more questions left. When you mentioned electricity was a paradigm shift, I got the aha moment. The UAP in relation to plasma, filaments, solar flares, and EMP. Yeah. So look, there's no doubt, like when we have these plasma, filament, solar flare events, and now that you got this, whatever that thing is coming into the solar system that they still haven't figured out what it really is. It's not a comet, right? When you look at these things, it's really clear we're going to have some moments, right, where it was there all along, but most people refuse to see it until it's like, just remember, I sort of make fun of this when it comes to technology and business models. But remember, all of these businesses like Enron went out of business slowly and then suddenly. Same thing happened with Blockbuster Video, slowly, then suddenly. So the same thing applies with consciousness and breakthroughs and awareness that, hey, they're here. They're here. It's clear. I don't need a government anymore to tell me this. The government is always a day late and a dollar short. It's very rare they're ahead of the curve.
To watch the full presentation and more like this on geopolitics, the economy, and world events from an archetypal and mundane astrological perspective, join the Global Transformation Astrology membership. Go to gta.williamstickevers.com. Become a GTA member today.